Tere hommikust. Good morning. How many of you understood the first sentence? Okay, was there anyone who didn't?
Really? Was easy.
Okay. Feel privileged because this presentation will be in English for this event. My name is Markko Karu. I'm a designer and I'm here to talk about usability. Many of you may know this old story about a Frenchman, an Englishman, and a Chukchi who were put to isolated room with nothing but a telephone in it. And the test was to understand what they crave the most, what they need, what is the first thing they need. And well, the Frenchman was in that room for a day, and next morning he called and asked for a croissant and a coffee. The Englishman took a day longer. He stayed in a room for another day, but then he also ordered some tea and, you know, the stereotypes. But the Chukchi, he stayed in the room for a whole week. And the scientists, they got worried about the Chukchi, and when they opened the room, he saw the Chukchi knocking on the phone and crying, "Chukchi kushat hochет," which means Chukchi wants to eat. Have you heard the story? I heard it in the kindergarten. So the story was about 80 people who couldn't use the phone. So the joke was about technology. And it was funny because everybody knows how to use a phone. Right? But the Chukchi, they didn't. So the assumption was that everybody should know how to use a phone, and the joke was on native people. Now, there are 70 million programmers in the world now, which is about as many people as living in Netherlands, which is quite a lot of people. Actually, I'm not one of them. So I'm speaking on behalf of the rest, which is over 7 billion people. So when you compare the previous situation where Chukchis were the ones who didn't know how to use a telephone, in the real world, programmers are the ones who can. So that's the correlation between those who can use tools and those who cannot. Speaking of tools, well, the easiest tools are the ones we are using with our hands, like a screwdriver. Easy to use, easy to learn. Not very efficient when you compare it with a power tool, which have many functions and you can use for different works, and they work in a more efficient way. And as technology is making everything easier and faster, we have those robotic arms which are performing the same tasks previously done by people, now done using instructions, programs, operational code. So this development is about efficiency. Every new technology is more efficient, and that makes you people very useful because you know how to make things efficient. Using computers, coding, creating new software, all creates value. So you all have well-paid jobs and you do something which is important for the world. But this importance hides another story. It's this self-assurance about how things should run. You know how things have to be used because you have created them. You know what's the right way of behaving. And human behavior is what usability tries to bring to the table, to explain to all the engineers and programmers about humans, those guys who cannot understand what you do, but they have to, because they want to use those tools you are creating. Have you seen this concept of new Google campus? Oh, sorry, Apple campus. For me, this is something out of this world. It looks like a spaceship. It's a self-image. We have created something so advanced that it looks like an alien ship. We are using technologies which are so advanced that we are having troubles. All our troubles are about people who just don't read the instructions, who just don't know how to use those magnificent technologies. Now, according to this Chaos Manifesto, 90% of large IT projects fail. And they fail not because of programmers. They fail because of misunderstanding why those projects were initiated, why people needed those things. And when systems become too complex, too difficult to use, that's because we planned people to behave like lemmings, that they know what are the right behaviors in those systems. We assume that they know how to use those systems. There's an old story about the video recorder. There's a 12 o'clock. Some machines have 0000 there. How many of you had those devices at home? Okay. Did you see the correct time there, or the 12 o'clock was blinking? Because you are programmers. So the assumption was that people will learn how to set the clock on the video recorder. But everything that is too difficult for us and we don't know why we need to learn the skills, we also have an option to ignore the learning. So in many homes, those clocks were blinking 12 o'clock. Because it's human. We are not reading news about countries we are not interested in. We are not spending our time on stuff we don't know why we are interested in. It's all about not having the interest to learn. And I mean, the big issue with passwords, people cannot memorize passwords. The more complex the passwords are, the more certain is that people will have a post-it note on their computer having that code written there, because people cannot remember those difficult codes. Where this misunderstanding comes even with greater risk is at operation room at hospitals. Those systems have really short login time. So if a doctor is not using the system, it logs out. So all the notes you're actually making to your paper, because whenever you want to write something, the system has logged out and you cannot use the system. So instead of creating something useful, the system that was created for efficiency actually creates more work, because you have to write all the notes you made on a paper later to the system. So the user interface is something between the logic behind the software and understanding of where this system is used. The more difficult it is to understand why people are using it, the more complex the user interfaces usually are. That's because all the functions are crammed to this page. All the functionalities are listed, which ends with systems like this, where you cannot understand what is that you have to do with it, because it is too complicated. So when we talked about the progress, how the tools are developed, software has also developed in a way that it first had really few functions. Then you had all the functions. Everything you can do, it's on the front page, you can click on it. Then Google came and said that, well, basically, people only need the right button. So this evolution has come from one function to multiple functions to the right function. And it's a damn hard question. Why people are using this stuff? Because they are using it for several things. They need those tools for different things, and therefore it's really hard to decide what will happen if I click on this button. When we use technology, it's only because we get stuff done faster. We are using apps to locate us on a map. It's faster than paper map. Everything we do with new devices has to be faster than using the previous tools or apps. So that's the reason why you should have a new technology. So making things simpler often means that you have less buttons, which is what happens with Alien remote control to operate digital television. I was asked to basically validate that the developers have done a great job on the interface of Alien, and it's really good. You can use it, and there's no reason to redesign it. But we almost had a fight about this remote control, because at first I saw it. I said, well, where are the buttons? Why do you need buttons? Well, if I want to see our main channel, I press 1. If I want to see Fox, I press 40. That's why I need buttons. No, you don't need buttons. You save your favorites to the favorites, and then you navigate. Then you navigate, you use the arrows, you press OK. Is it that much difficult? Yes, it is. Because with current remote control, the job gets done faster. whenever you're creating a new system, compare it with the previous one and see if there is any efficiency created. Because when you create additional steps, when you create this threshold of learning, the old one is better. And the Elion has learned, and now they have buttons on their remote control. Because I wasn't the only one who said that, well, where are the buttons? Most of the users missed those buttons. Not the remote control for watching the movies or any other settings there, but that was faster on previous remote. So the most important question is, what is the job this system is used for? Last year, this team won Design Museum, which is located in London, their Design of the Year award for their work for British state website, which looks like this. Not much of a design, I might say. But what they actually did was they analyzed the usage of this site. Actually, this site means they united 2,000 different governmental, organizational websites into one system. So instead of having discussions with different parts of this big state, they now have a portal. And this page actually is not used. Nobody goes there, because all people go through Googling. They are looking for something. And what the design team actually did, what was the biggest accomplishment, was they wrote a list of principles for creating the content. How to talk human. Because all those people who are working in those little organizations, they have understanding of what they do, but they have hard time explaining it to people. How people get different grants, what they have to do, when they have to apply, and where and how. Because for them this is easy. That's the biggest misunderstanding is those people who are offering this public service really don't know how to speak to people. So the design team actually created rules with examples to explain how you should create a user-friendly website. So instead of having assumptions about how people behave, the best way is to go and talk with people. This is what designers do when they try to create better web environments. They try to understand how people are using those websites currently, for what, in which conditions, and then you can decide what buttons to remove, what to add, how to write, what to illustrate, and how the system works compared with current system. There are two important questions. This is your professional skill. You know how to build stuff. The more important question is why you are building it. For instance, yesterday I was having a lecture in Pärnu, and I was driving back, and I was wondering where this event today is taking place. I didn't know it happens here, so I checked with my mobile, and my assumption was that if there is an event that on its website you can find the address of the event, which wasn't so. I couldn't find the address on this website. So I know it's in Tallinn, Estonia, but it's not a huge place, but still I don't find it when I walk on the street. So I want to know what's the exact address, and that wasn't on that website. So that kind of discussion is quite a normal thing when a website or application is created. That was my first app project. It was like 2009. TaxiPal, taxi ordering service was created, and I was asked to create an interface and identity for it. And on the background you can see the flow, how the system works. And I have highlighted the initial dialogue with the user, which was planned to be the most used one. And it included questions. How many people are traveling? When do you need a taxi? Where are you going? If you think about it, when do you need this app? You're in a nightclub, you're drunk, you need a car. Okay, how many people are... Well, the best you can do is press on that button. On one button, and you want the taxi to arrive. And it's nice to see that Taxify has done it far better than TaxiPal ever did. Not because well, I like TaxiPal to be better, but TaxiPal was crowded with functionalities from day one, and Taxify now works as it's supposed to be. It locates you, you press call me a taxi, and you can choose which taxi you should use. So the context is sometimes more important than the efficiency or the power. When you look at the compact camera market, currently the models on the shelves have over 20 megapixels, which is ridiculously big number, because 5 megapixel is, for most users, sufficient. So you don't need that much efficiency. What you need is camera with you all the time. So technical side and the usage have to come together. Have you seen that map? Like a local. It was created for locals. It was created for people who want to travel like they were locals. They didn't. Those people don't want to act like tourists. So they want to go to places where locals go. That was the whole concept behind this map. And at some point, the makers of the map wanted to create a mobile app. So when creating this app, we analyzed how people actually are using those apps. Because the marketplace was full with different travel apps. But consider this. You're going to a foreign country. The first rule is no roaming. You don't have internet connection. This is where you lose most of those existing apps, because those were created in their homeland just for browsing in your office, which is not the way those apps are used. Second thing is, why do you need the app? Well, how do you act like local? Well, first, you don't have a map in your hand, which means that you are walking on a street, trying to act normal, looking around, and you get lost. That's because you didn't look at the map, because you don't know the place. So what do you need? You need a quick fix. You need to understand where you are instantly. So you then, when you realize that you are lost, could get to safe house, your hotel, or whatever you want to go. That's the main functionality why you need the app at first place. The second thing is that all the places you could visit. Current apps have list of best restaurants in every city, best places to visit. Have you been to London? Have you tried to cover the city in one day and failed miserably? This is what happens when you list all the best places, because it has no context. Actually, you need the list of things you can visit which are close in a kilometer radius or something. And the fourth criteria is it open? There is no point showing me places I cannot visit right now. So understanding the user context actually has created for this app a really good reputation among travel guides, because it behaves like people would like to use it. Another issue is sometimes users need to learn a new skill. They have to understand the tool in order to use it. I mean, we all use software. I also use design software. I have learned it over the years. But I know that it's useful, and I need to know it. Years ago, I was asked to design an interface for this device. It's portable drug test, which is done with spectral analysis. Into this machine, you put this small test tube, and the machine comes with case filled with different acids and stuff to make this substance more visible to this spectral analysis. And there was 40-page manual with it explaining how spectral analysis detects narcotic substances. So that was the interface. And the problem was it didn't look expensive, because the machine was quite expensive, so it had to be sold, and the Minister of Defense of any country should look at this and say, well, we need that stuff in our office. So that was the task. Well, first we didn't understand what is there. I see the image of the test, I see the report of the test, and I see several buttons. So we asked, well, can we use the machine? Well, you cannot use it without substance. Well, can we have some substance? Well, you can't, because it's illegal. But finally, we said, okay, please describe me different situations, how the test is performed. So we talked through all the substances with all the steps user have to take in order to get to the result. And over the course of 3 months, we realized that actually the user is not allowed to have their own opinion on this test, which means that they only have one button to press, which is next. And everything you have to teach to that person who performs the test can be displayed on the screen, because there aren't many different steps. The only thing you have to know is what colored tube to take, what acid to add, how much of it, put it to a machine, press start, and the rest is done by machine, because Later on, that result will be used in court, and therefore the person who did the test is not allowed to have any options during that process. Sometimes you cannot make the systems easier to use just because you have a complex problem. You cannot end with one button, make it look nice or choose the perfect home for me, which was the case we solved for a bank who wanted to make the loan process easier, home loan process easier for the user. On interviews, we understood that there is this vicious circle of questions. A person wants to know how much money they could get from the bank in order to choose a home. The bank will tell its number only on the object you are buying. So I cannot tell which house I want to buy if I don't know how much money I could get. And they go in circles. So what we ended up with was a tool for people to understand their options. Because they all have their personal preferences, but that is not visible for the bank, because bank only sees the end result of your quotation. Many people have their own spreadsheets where they are collecting the links to the pages where the suitable houses are sold. So we created this kind of united environment where you look at three important things. Well, first is how much it will cost you on daily, yearly basis. One is the price the real estate is sold for. Another one is what's the upkeep of this real estate, and also how much money do you have to put into renovation. So you could see how much money you actually put to that object. Another one set of issues you have to understand is how it will affect your current way of living, where you are working, where your children are going to school or kindergarten. You have to understand what will be your daily travel distance. And the third one is that you have your personal ranks. For instance, if you are into sports, you need a place to put all your bicycles and surfboards and such. And some people don't need that space. Some people like balcony, some people like fireplace. And those are important, and they have to be listed. And what happened to the system is that later on, when you ask for a loan from a bank, then the bank can know what you were looking at. So they can suggest you that, well, we cannot give you that much money, but you can afford this one. So you can break this vicious cycle of how much money I could get and what you would like to buy. So in big systems, in big companies, the development process usually starts from description. You want to create such and such website or environment, then you create a plan for it. You assume that people will click there and follow that, let's say, journey in the website. And if they don't, then you force them. If the system is not usable, then you explain that, well, you have to learn to use it. Have you been to this? Well, the new site for the Estonian Postal Office is as user-friendly as this word. They make you change your behavior just because they assume that this is how people are. So instead of forcing people into a new situation, we'll first understand where they came from. What is the actual situation that people are currently in? Then you prove that your assumptions are true, that people actually are behaving like this. And then if something hits the fan, then you apologize and you try to fix it. You don't force people into using a faulty system. This is analytical tool for understanding the efficiency of production company. This is back-end, basically. It's environment which I was asked to do redesign, and it was really hard to use. Because in order to get any result from the system, you had to set filter on everything. Everything you had to set the dates, what you are measuring, what's the measurement unit, and so forth. Really difficult. The other end of this system is the line view, where the workers can see their daily performance, and everybody in the office knows how productive we are. Now the simplification of the system started from understanding who is using the system and in which way. And yes, you can make this interface easier to use. You can remove steps from entering the data. Here you can see all the inserting, changing the item you are producing, or changing the operator on the machine, or marking down the reasons why this area here is red. It all went easier, but the question was how the analytics, how the backend, how the interface of this place becomes easier. And we realized that most people who want to do any specific analysis on it, they are exporting the data in raw form, and they are modeling it in spreadsheets however they would like. So we don't have to solve it with the interface. That was great relief, because what we can do now is show just something that brings out the abnormal situations, and something you would like to inspect more into detail. But the interface in its own is really flat. All the options are visible, and if there is something you would like to regularly check, you just save it into reports, and it's really a click away. So understanding what you have to solve and what you don't have to solve is also a big relief. So yes, assuming that people are behaving in a certain way always takes time to fix. I was developing this tool for people to solve the problem of long queues with a mobile app. And from user perspective, this is something really useful. But from company perspective, all the companies that people are currently waiting for a long time, and they do it often, those companies don't exist. You don't need apps for those companies. But they really like the ability to see who visited the place. And inserting a name into a tablet and showing it on a screen really helps them to provide better customer service and have better data on the visitors. So whenever you are solving anything, please make sure that the new way you are creating is better than the old way. And since I'm running out of time, thank you for your... actually, this is a tool I wanted to introduce. We are building this tool for designers and also for programmers to solve the problem of people wanting it fast and wanting it cheap. So we create options, either you want it fast or you want it cheap. And also no more marking down the hours, because the system creates you timetables for the whole week. So now I'm really done.